Taking No Shorts. Coming right up.
We talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Now I gotta talk, we all gotta be quiet. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
And now your host, Taking No Shorts podcast, Jay Grizzy.
Yeah, let's just bring that all back in. I hope I still got Miss Steph Bee with me. Steph, you still with me through the intro?
I'm here. I was about to text
you. Hey, man. What you about to text me?
Like, I'm about to text you. Okay, boomer.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching, you're looking live or sort of live at Taking No Shorts podcast, episode 119. I'm your host, Jay Grizzy Green.
Exactly.
AKA Mr. Leave No Meat on the Bone. Welcome. Thank you for putting eyes on this. Let's go ahead and let everybody know where they can find this thing. Every Friday around 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find this at the following streaming channels: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, all at Taking No Shorts Pod. And then the audio, usually on the Saturday after that Friday, on all audio streaming platforms where you get your favorite podcast. Tonight's special guest is not new to this.
Exactly.
She has been here for episode 2 of Taking No Shorts podcast. She's been here for episode, I want to say it might have been 68 or 67 or somewhere around there.
Exactly.
She's also a Legacy Internet Radio alumni. She is also an MSOP. I'm going to find out, and if y'all going to learn tonight what that stands for. And then last but not least, she's a certified master coach. Ladies and gentlemen, a friend of mine, hopefully she'll be a friend of you, Miss Steph Bee. All right, that's enough. What's up, Steph?
How you doing, Grizz? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, sister. It's a blessing. It's been a while. You know, I always see you a little bit when I go through my archives because you kind of jumped in. You've been on this podcasting space and this social media space for quite a minute now. And I saw an episode that I chopped up a couple weeks back, and I did it on for a throwback, right? And I showed it to my therapist, and she was like, "Oh, she read you."
It's all in love, brother. It's all in love.
I know. She said, "Boy, you is her." I think the quote was, "You got to be careful with people that kiki all the time. They in some pain."
Yeah, it's pain. I'm ruining my set. The people who are perpetually happy, you know, they always laughing. I'd be like,
yeah, man.
What's going on?
Yeah. So, Steph, we're gathered here tonight through all the nuances of technology, and we're trying as Gen Xers to get into this space, or not trying. We are actually in this space. I wanted to talk about the political climate from our perspective. I was born in 72. I'm not going to do what ladies said don't do and put ladies. Yeah. So you're a Gen Xer too, right?
I am. I was born in 76.
There you go. Oh my God. You like my, I always thought you was like my little sisters. Mm-hmm. You like a little.
Next year's the big one, as they call it.
Yeah, when my little sister started turning that number, I was just like, yeah, that's crazy. But still, at the same time, we got, it's about 40 million of us Black Gen Xers in the country. And is it 40 million? No, I think it's 40 million African Americans. Let me get my stats straight. You got the stats on how many Gen Xers out here now, Black?
Oh, but we are the smallest generation. That's why I didn't want to jump in, because, you know, we have that lag. But Gen X is the smallest generation of all generations. And but ironically, we're not the smallest generation of Black people. So, which is interesting. So our parents did have enough children that there's enough Black Gen Xers. And as a matter of fact, during that period of time, there were not as many. That was when you started to see, or they started to identify trends in the browning of America, because few white generations started to have less children.
Yeah, we put out some babies. And even though we might be the smallest ones, you know, we had impact. We still do have impact. And we were of folks who were the first, maybe our parents, you know, well, I know my parents were some of the first towards the end of their education, high school, to be integrated, to break Jim Crow in that way. But we were the generation that was all the way past. We was going to school with white kids. At least I was. I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in New York, of course, New Jersey, New York, going to school in both of those places. Yeah, I mean, by the time I came around, integration was not the conversation, you know, going into school. So legitimately, Gen X, Black Gen X, is really the first Black generation that had full opportunity to be upwardly mobile, even though we were still, you know, there redlining was happening to the people right before us. And then we come along. Yes, there's still some of these things, but a lot of policies had been worked through to allow a lot of us to be college educated, you know, to really make a lot of progress. And I think that's a little bit of where some of the apathy and kind of backing off of politics and getting a little comfortable in the late 90s. I think that's where some of this came from, is that, you know, the era of people who were singing "We Shall Overcome," their children and grandchildren, we'd overcame, right? And so we were maybe a little less involved in things that weren't socially political. You know, during the 90s, yes, there was the Iraq War and things like that, but that was a big amount of space where there was like constant 80s, 90s, constant political movement in the social space, from the, you know, explicit lyric labels against the music industry, to what TV looked like, to the safe sex, you know, and the AIDS epidemic leading to public conversations about safe sex. We're the first generation to have that level of approachability and accessibility where, you know, for Black America, we really are.
You bring up a good point, especially in the conversation of where we are politically and how we fall, where us as a whole or as a demo fall in this political climate, because I was apoplectic. I was especially growing up poor, and I told somebody, I said, poverty is one of the cruelest things you can put in a capitalistic society. Poverty is like a dead ringer. Like it has tentacles.
Also ridiculous, right? To be poor in this society seems insane, right?
Yeah, but you know, the tentacles of poverty affect so much. So when I came up, and I remember in 1979, I was 7 years old. I didn't know nothing from nothing, but I just knew there was somebody running against the other guy, and the other guy was not that guy. So I told my family, we were sitting down. I think they actually were watching the 1980 debate. And I said, well, why I vote for Ronald Reagan? Do you know all but
You said that?
I said it out loud. 7 years. Yeah. I was the Alex. I didn't want to be Alex P. Keaton, but yeah, I was the Alex P. Keaton in my family. They was like, boy, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, we on food stamps. We got welfare cheese and all that.
And they're going to cut it if that other guy gets in. Right?
If that other guy gets in. So, then fast forward, I got into politics through Doug Wilder in Virginia and his gubernatorial. That was my first election I voted for. I was just always politically inclined, and I don't, always into history and things of that nature, but the climate we're in, why did I, because I thought we was talk pre-show, like I just checked out, Steph. I didn't say they won. I went out the other side because we're in a times where there's so much political extremes, you know. And I checked out, and you was just like, you said, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, so I'll shut up and let you answer. But you was like, I never checked out, and I want you to explain to what you said to me on how you didn't, after Kamala didn't win, why you still was engaged.
Well, okay, so I said it a little differently. It wasn't that I didn't check out. I just became more conscious of what I was checking into, right? I knew at this point that this was going to be salacious conversations, a lot of drama, a lot of unnecessary information, a lot of punditry, and there was going to be a lot of noise. So I had to pull away initially, of course, one, out of disappointment. I was hugely disappointed, even though I was not confident that a country that wouldn't elect a white woman would elect a black woman. So I had hope, but not high hope, right? And so when this all went down, what I did was say, I can't listen to every single thing, because every single thing in a Trump administration will break your peace. There's always going to be, a grift, or some rule being broken, or some testing of the law. I just knew from his first administration that this was going to go into a more, it was going to be progressive debauchery, so to speak. So I kind of pulled away, but here's the thing. Apathy is a weapon of the enemy. And the minute that your perceived enemy, or the people you don't disagree with, know that you're checking out, they don't care that you're checking out. They're glad. They're glad because it allows them to move silently, or move more covertly, or in some cases move right in your face, but you just refuse to see it. So what I think is more important is for people to determine what they can withstand, not to completely check out. It might be that you don't want to be someone who has public conversations about it, or you don't want to discuss it, or you don't want to debate MAGA, or you don't want to debate liberals and progressives. I don't know. But you still should be absorbing some political information, because at the end of the day, you live in a country where the impact is going to be there for you, whether you like it or not. You can say your vote doesn't matter, a million things, but I can't imagine not knowing how people who make decisions about my life, I can't imagine not knowing what they think of me or what they're planning to do. I want to know what you're doing. So that's why I stay, plugged in.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that for me in a way. I know that. I mean, here we are. For me, I'm a year removed from that anger and that disappointment.
Sure.
And now that this last year has transpired, I find myself re-engaging, but re-engaging with intent. Like not just going, not just I'm analyzing not the opposite. Yeah, I'm not analyzing the opposite side anymore, because MAGA has put their stake in the ground, and they said who they are. They fascist Nazis and want a white Christian nation. And they ain't gonna repeat themselves. They not gonna sit there and go back and forth with you. They sitting there telling 80 million Americans agree with them. So go ahead.
I that element of what you're saying, I 100% respect. It's like when people say I don't negotiate with terrorists. They're not negotiating their beliefs with us or with you, or with someone they don't believe in it. I find that is not debate, because that's not going to move things forward. Debate is centered around resolution and coming to a consensus, even if I don't 100% agree with you. We are not in an environment where there is room for healthy debate. When you don't believe that people who look like me or people who have an accent or people don't belong here simply because of those things, I don't know where we can start on a debate, right? How they get here because they're here already, or whether they can stay and why, that's debatable, and that's conversation, and that can lead to policy and law. And so for me, the information I want to take in, I decided on two things. I would go with policy and punditry. I like politics. It's like a sporting event. I find it interesting. I do personally, right? And so instead of lying and saying I'm just totally checked out, I decided I was going to make it something that I could absorb in a way that educates me, but doesn't inflame me, right? Because I don't want to live in a
Exactly.
space of anger and animosity with people who aren't even thinking about me. So what I really do is I know that I want to hear certain pundits, even certain ones that I don't necessarily agree with. I want to hear opinions. I want to see the debates that they're having on TV in their live roundtables. I'm not going to tune into something that's super far outside of pundits I don't agree with. On the other side, when it comes to policy, I read policy conversations and political conversations exclusively in a range of sources that I agree with and don't agree with. And then I love to read international views of our policy and politics because it is removed from our internal dialogue that's all about the personal feelings of things, right? So that's what I decided to do. So I'm not going to spend all day watching MSNBC, but I will check into the pundits I like, right? I'm not going to watch Newsmax, but I might watch Chris Cuomo, who I don't think is liberal as much as he might want people to believe it. I may watch him to hear him straddling the fence on some policy. But I'm definitely going to read the New York Times. I'm definitely going to read the Wall Street Journal. I'm definitely going to go to HuffPost, and then I'm going to look at the BBC and Al Jazeera. I want to know what CNN International is saying. That's how I break it down. The punditry is where I allow myself to have emotion.
Well, and I'm the opposite, because the punditry got me. Was so surprised. Well, it wasn't surprising for me because I was dealing with my own stuff at the time, November of last 2024. But as a historical guy, like I was a history major, so I think back to the 1840s and the 50s and the debate between the slave fugitive law and the South steadily saying, I don't want to be around y'all, or we don't want to be a part of this country anymore.
Yeah,
the outright rebellion within. And it's where we are again today. And what got me angered is intelligent people, far more intelligent than me, know what's going on, but they will sit on panels of cable news shows for a check and tell they friends off the camera. Like the righty and the lefty probably excuse my language, but they probably are sharing the same woman. You know what I'm saying? In Washington, D.C., you just don't know.
You don't know. It is the Beltway.
But they will come on cable news and make you believe that they disagree with one another.
Well, I would say that you can do the same thing about any politician, until maybe these more recent years. It wasn't unusual for them to admit that they golfed together, that they, and I'm going to tell you something. If I were Jasmine Crockett, there would be no reason for me to go golfing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, no positive reason. So I couldn't see it. But they've always admitted that, and this is why I find politics necessary, not just for the opinions of the people who are making the policies or dissecting them, but so that we know who we're dealing with, to watch them and understand that I can watch a Democrat and tell you when I don't agree. For instance, recently, I literally watched a Democrat reading a quote that they had up on the screen and misread it. They left out a pivotal word, something that would be very impactful to the conversation, and that made the statement that the president made look much more diabolical than it really was. I don't agree with things like that. There are plenty of things that I can disagree with the current administration on without trying to, put something over on someone. And that's why I watch them, because they need to be as accountable, the pundits and the politicians, for what they're saying and doing to all people. And that's why I don't tune them out 100%.
Well, then I think of course the accountability can only come from the voting from the polls. We have gotten, I think, in my opinion, the country has gotten to the point where you got to strip it all down to the local level when it comes to civically involving yourself on what's going to happen in your city, in your county, in your state, in your country, because the money, the influence, the corruption, all of that is usurping the voice of the people. And let me ask you this now that I'm talking about the voice of the people, because like I said, we already know who the other side is, but the Democrats have lost to this guy twice, right? Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris. Who else they put up when 2028 comes and he's threatening to put troops in cities to suppress the vote? What do you think? The question is, what do you think Democrats should do, or the opposition should do, in these upcoming midterms and then in 28 to push back and to win? Should there's two options. Should they do the Mondami AOC thing and embrace progressivism and try to grow the tent, or should they try to play that centrist, middle of the road Democrat like Spanberger or even Jackie Sherrill in Jersey that won big numbers and won in places where other party won and converted them? What do you think where do you think the Democrats, if you had to consult, if you had a candidate in a district or running for office, where do you say, hey, the wind is blowing this way? What do you do?
I think the biggest thing is to understand that you have more than two options, right? I don't believe that you have to follow this, huge progressive wave or be huge centrist. I think you need to be talking about what the people are concerned about. And what people are concerned about don't fall into progressive or centrist buckets. How much chicken cost doesn't matter whether you're progressive or whether you're centrist. And I think what you saw with Mikey Sherrill, what you saw with Abigail Spanberger, what you saw with Mamdani was a very, very central dialogue about affordability, whether it was with housing, whether it was with food, whether it was with how you were going to buy a home, whether it was about where you could send your children to school. I think one of the things that the Democrats have done really poorly and with fault and to almost to their detriment, just too much of it, is focusing on fighting Donald Trump and putting a stake in the sand of I'm a centrist and I'm a progressive and I'm a liberal. And at this point, what we've seen, right, on the other side is that the most far right end of the identity of the party now runs the party. It didn't matter to the people who decided that they voted for Obama and now they were going to vote for Trump. It didn't matter that they identified as MAGA, far right, or so on and so forth. Labels are for pundits and policymakers. Issues are for people who are voting. And then when you start to talk about where you're going to identify, I think the reason that you can identify with the need to veer toward a Mikey Sherrill, a Spamberger, a Mamdani is because clearly the conversations that really got them elected are common, quote, old school kitchen table conversations. And that's what people voted for them on, right? And, Mikey Sherrill pulled back quite a bit of the Hispanic population. That was on a topic she didn't really have to go deep on. Trump is doing all of the conversation we need him to do when it comes to immigration. All you have to do is say, hey, look, you see what's happening with immigration? That's not being conducted by a Democratic administration. I don't even need to tell you I disagree with it. And you don't need to tell me that you disagree with it. So we already know we agree there. Let's focus on something else. Let's focus on affordability. That in itself will bring enough people into the tent. And then the policy and the direction of the party should be dictated by the policy or the needs of the people. I just feel that is true to me. That is truly being a politician for the people. It's why recently I was watching something about Jesse Jackson. It's why he was so integral. You can say anything you want about him, but he was integral to the movement because it wasn't black, it wasn't white, it was the Rainbow Coalition, and it was issues. And it was issues
Jesse didn't win, though.
People could agree with.
Jesse didn't win, and I voted for. Well, if I could have voted for him in '88, I would have.
I went with my grandmother, and I pulled the lever.
You did. I know you were a proud sister for that. We shall overcome. What was his? Yes, we can. That was his speech, right?
He did kind of use a yes we can. Yes, he did.
Yeah, or we shall go. Yeah, yes, we can. Or what? Hope over dope.
That's right. Listen, Jesse did a lot of things people don't realize, and there's a really good book out right now written by Abby Phillips. I read an excerpt of it. It actually really does get into the legacy of Jesse Jackson really well. So if you're someone who is politically engaged, it's a great read by Abby Phillips.
Yeah, he broke some barriers down in '88. Before him, I think I didn't even know she was from Staten Island. Yeah. I thought she was from Brooklyn. Geraldine Ferraro. I thought Staten Island was a Republican. Yeah, Geraldine Ferraro. There was a Democrat from Staten Island that ran for vice president.
That was part of the magic, to get a Democrat from Staten Island and a woman out there and campaigning. I mean, it was magic. It was brilliant. You know, someone you mentioned earlier, I want to go back to is AOC.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, AOC is not out there speaking as a super progressive the way she was when she was aligned with Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Camilla Jayapal, the ones who all came in together. If you notice, in order for her brand to survive, and that's where I spend a lot of my time, is talking about branding and the human brand and the development of your brand. If you'll notice, she understood the psychology of the nation. She understood that aligning, even if they have good points, with Ilhan Omar and all of these people, it was making her seem too extreme for the voter that just doesn't want to spend time arguing about the drama of it all, right? Getting stuck in the back and forth on TV. She has pulled herself out of that group to rebrand as someone who is supporting the affordability candidates. Now she's someone that candidates want out on the trail. She's totally rebranded herself in a more likable way. I believe it's because she knows that taking the flag as progressive or liberal or centrist is not where it's going to be, where the next vote is going to be driven.
I don't think, I agree with you. It's not going to be that, because Republicans have always, the right has always defined Democrats way better than Democrats could define, or the definitions could stick to Republicans. And Democrats used to always be afraid to say that they believed in some form of socialism or that they were a progressive. And I always used to wonder, I was just like, who don't want progress? Who is against progress? Even the right is for progress. I mean, at least earliest part of the 20th century with the progressive movement, that was Teddy Roosevelt. That was a Republican. I know times are different now, but who's against how can that's like saying who don't want to feed children? Like, oh, there is people that don't want to feed. There's people that want to put kids and lock them up. There's people that want. I mean, now I'm taking it to this. I'm extrapolating the conversation, like just for the audience to hear what's actually happening, because I'm sure they see it. But I know the ICE came to Charlotte, North Carolina, I want to say a week or two ago. And I saw somebody say that in some of the Hispanic neighborhoods, the classroom participation, like none of the kids was coming to school.
Right.
Because they were afraid that ICE is outside in the bus loop willing to pick. That's where we at. That's what we do in America. 80 million. That's what y'all voted for. And so when it get like that stuff, I'm like, oh, that's what y'all own. So it caused someone like me who was, and I told this and I said this in a previous episode, I was the black guy that if I lived in a multicultural cul-de-sac and the shit went down, to the white folk, I was the black guy you wanted to have in the cul-de-sac. Because I'd be like, no, they good white folk, don't do nothing to them. But because of this now, I'd be like, go ahead. Go get them.
So something you said I thought was really interesting. You said, who doesn't want progress, right? The people who don't want progress are the people that don't understand what progressive means. So you're a man who went to college, you were a history major, and even when you speak, you're like, progressive and so on and so forth. You have to understand, and this is what politicians have intentionally in many ways done. They've spoken over the head of the average voter, way over the heads of the average voter, so that you are almost unaware, uneducated, and undereducated, and you have to keep coming back to them for this as the source. So when a Republican voter hears the word progressive, and that word is now being defined by a Republican, it sounds like a negative thing. So instead of saying I'm a progressive, it is, I'm someone who believes in progress for all. If you live in West Virginia and you are worried about dirty water, and you don't have, and you have an outhouse, and you don't have good health care, I'm interested in you having the progress of running water that is clean and access to health care. If you live in the hood of the Bronx and you have been fighting with the city to make sure that they take care of this project housing development that you live in, and you don't have regular heat, I am for progress in your lifestyle so that you have running, accessible heat year round or whenever you need it.
Affordable heat.
Affordable, but even accessible for the person who doesn't even have it, right?
Yeah, I know.
You're
I used to smell like kerosene when I was growing up because we ain't had no heaters. And the girl told me in school, right? She said, somebody stink. Somebody smell like gas.
Now, now imagine if someone had just come to your community and said, hey, I'm a politician and I'm looking for progress in this area that includes heating, safe heating in all of your homes, heating that you wouldn't even be aware of, because we're going to make sure it's a part of your infrastructure. That or a part of your environment. That changes how people hear things. Just like socialism. Half the people who are afraid of it are on Obamacare. Yeah. And I don't have access, so I'm paying for you to have it. That is each one teach one. Each one, you're all getting access. So it is this it's a terrible thing that Democrats are horrible at defining what they believe in and being honest about it. And it's even more of a terrible thing that the other party is able to skew it, feed it to their audience, and then their audience doesn't do the homework to say, is that what they really care for? Is that what they really want?
I just wish that we got a ping? Or is that mine? I got well, it might have been my cell phone. Was that yours? That was my alarm saying you got to go to sleep, Negro. No, I feel great. I just got a pattern. I have a customer lifestyle to myself now. But
Listen,
I just want to demo.
I think that's the beauty of being successful and self-sustained, right? You've worked hard to develop a lifestyle and to be able to say, hey, this is what I do for my comfort. And I can tie that right back into the politics of there are people who don't simply say, I get to go to bed at 9:30 because that's what I can do. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that a lot of people in the US need to understand. It's beyond people being able to feed their families. People aren't even being able to access a modicum of comfort. Just the comfort of saying, I know my child has what they need. I know my home is secure, whatever that might be. Why can't we have that conversation and then parse out our Congress and our Senate person by person and say, we can see this person voted against the comfort of the people, the needs of the people, the desires of the people, and boom, we don't want them. We'll never do it because we speak in terms of Democrat, Republican, progressive, liberal, conservative. It goes over the heads of the people.
This camera right here, Steph, is so crooked tonight on my end. It is messing me up all night. Because I'm just telling you, I'm listening and I hear you. You're making very, very great, valid points. A great show so far. But ladies and gentlemen, when I said, because the tripod and the camera is right underneath my feet and I'm leaning back and I'm relaxing and my feet nicks the tripod, which then makes it crooked. So that's why y'all see me doing this and leaning. I'm sorry. I hate the kid. But shit like that, just because it's my baby, and it's your baby, you want it to look a certain kind of way.
Yes.
I want it to be how it, but guess what? So what I've learned over 118 plus some odd ones that ended up on the cutting room floor, sometimes the best ones are the ones that didn't come out like you want, like perfect. They just didn't, it didn't work out that way.
Absolutely.
No, I was just going to say, I want a Democrat to like you were saying earlier about you don't have to be worried about the monikers or the labels that the pundits or the Republicans or MAGA is going to give you. Speak to the people, what the people want. Get the people what the people need, and the people's going to show up for you in droves to drown out that silo of information that MAGA, Newsmax, Fox News, all they get. They can't, they if you was to tell them right now that the reason why there's a 40-hour work week is because it was a guy named Eugene Debs that the United States locked up for being a socialist, because he was a progressive and a socialist running for the Socialist Party of America to be president of the United States. I want to say 1906, 1912, one of those. But the machines and shit just drowned him out. And it was because he was advocating for people not dying in coal mines and kids being worked, child labor laws and stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. And it bubbled up into Congress. It got through the major parties, but he had to go to jail. White man had to go to jail and suffer and die because he was trying to progress human nature and not human nature, but
human dignity in the workplace.
Human dignity in the workplace, and that's how you get unions.
That's how you got a union.
That's how they kept us out for the longest. But I'm just saying, like,
why can't we have anybody, Democrat or Republican, speak straight to the people and say this is what? Because here's the thing. I would happily vote for a Republican that speaks to the social concerns that I have. They're just not speaking to them. So that's how we get put into these boxes. But if a Republican came along and he sounded like the Democrat I haven't heard in the last 2 years, right? I'd be like willing to listen to him, because it's the policy, it's the issues that I'm more concerned about than the party. It just so happens that the parties are aligning a certain way. Now, here's the other thing that I think could be very helpful is I think there needs to be a discussion about who speaks for the Democratic Party. And yeah, there can be many voices, but I think some of the voices are a little too antiquated, a little too scared. And, we're not going to do term limits, right? Senators are never going to vote. Congress, they're never going to vote against themselves. They're not going to do it. But I do think there definitely should be an age out. And part of that is like, why can't you talk about kitchen table issues? It's because you've now been in Congress long enough, whether you're Marjorie Taylor Greene and in 4 years you amassed 400% more wealth than you had, or whether you're Chuck Schumer and you've been in it so long, or Nancy Pelosi, you've been in it so long, you've amassed money. Once you've hit a certain amount of wealth in that space, or a certain amount of time in that space, you cannot serve two masters, your money and the mission of the people. I just don't think it's possible. And I think at some point there needs to be either tighter controls on how much they can grow their personal wealth while they're in, or two, just very, very strict term limits.
While you were saying that, I was looking it up so I make sure Citizens United is the case.
Citizens United, yeah.
2010. It was one. The first case was Buckley versus Vallejo in 19. I'm reading this off, and I would put it up, but I'm scared to mess up anything for the rest of the stream. But Buckley versus Vallejo from 1976 set the precedent that speech and money was not the same. Then it got challenged in 2010. Strange enough, I wonder who was the president then. Yeah. But Citizens United versus the F as in Frank, EC, Federal Elections Commission, which then made it legal to have unlimited
super PAC.
Yeah, unlimited. So the money, the money allows the corruption. And so I think in this era, let's say, from the Reagan, Clinton, Bush era, so let's say the last 40 years, money in the politics has corrupted absolutely. And when I say that, it's not to be pessimistic on good politicians who want to do the things that you spoke very well about with the affordability and how we should not be worried about nicknames of parties. But once you get, and this was getting me to that, is when you was talking about AOC. Yeah, she did a rebrand, but I think AOC now, she might, and I hate being conspiratorial, but they might have got to her. When I say they, like the lobbyists, the political, somebody, she might not be her own person now. Just like Hakeem Jeffries, same way.
Well, how easy do you think it is? First of all, it costs a lot of money to run, right? It costs a lot of money to run. It costs a lot of money to keep that seat. It costs a lot of money to do the campaigning. It costs. And it costs more than you get paid. And once they removed some of those financial regulations, and PACs and then super PACs became a part of the conversation, I think it will always be a conversation that and this is why we have disclosure laws, right? Where politicians do have to disclose where they're getting money from and what they're doing. Now, they've played fast and loose with those over the years, particularly the first Trump administration. And it's not the first one, but it was prevalent. It was pervasive there. What I will say is, yeah, you are going to get an AOC who is now, or a Max Frost, who's a new young congressman, a young congressman in there.
That's the kid from Florida, right?
He's from Florida. eventually you need money to keep this seat. You need money to
No, you
push your
don't, Steph. No, they don't.
that they're going to need it. The way politics is set up now, the loudest voice, it's the loudest voice in the room, and the loudest voice has the most money.
Well, that I know about. Not that I just know about the loudest voice part. You could be loud and wrong. That's for sure.
And we see that. And we see that.
Yeah.
But what's just loud and wrong? Money. Money is what brings loud and wrong into your living room. You know, money is why you see certain shows platforming people that lie, because they know that person brings viewers, which brings advertising revenue dollars. Money is behind all of this. And I think until PACs and super PACs are revisited, and I just don't think they ever will be, I think we'll always see this. And so it will come down to the least corrupt politician.
Yeah, you're saying it's so you have no this is what I take from what you're saying with that. You have no problem with politicians having to raise money through lobbyists or through super PACs, whatever, because that's just the nature of the beast right now. But at least they got disclosure laws where the light is the disinfectant, the shine, where folks can see who's paying you, and hopefully your opponent can bring that up. So that way, at the polling place, you say, well, I can't vote for him because so-and-so is giving them the money. So you're relying folks to do due diligence, low IQ voters. I saw a wiggle rifle just a few.
Where you're going. I agree with you. The average voter is a lower IQ individual from the perspective of political IQ. Absolutely agree with you. But I also realized from, the blue wave that never happened when Trump was first in, and so on, and then with Biden, I think what we need to be clear on is I can dislike PACs and super PACs in politics. I can dislike money in politics. I cannot remove it. So I've got to go fight the issues that I have the ability to fight. And so what is that? That is the ability to do my homework and see where AOC is getting her money, and see if AOC comes on and she starts talking about a specific cause, then I go back and I'm like, AOC and this cause. And then I go deeper dive. Hell, use ChatGPT. Why is AOC, explain to me like a political pundit, why is AOC so invested in XYZ, right? That's our job. We now are in a space where I almost feel like the voter is pointing their finger at the politician they voted for not telling them the truth, as opposed to the voter not realizing you didn't study for your test. You failed.
But that's just because it's a lack of leadership. I mean, a leader, the voter should do the due diligence before they pull the lever or check the box or whatever. But there is I'm trying to think in my Gen X years of who was a true leader as a politician, who was trailblazing over the last 40, 50 years. And I can't think of one. I maybe Jim Clyburn or John Lewis.
Yeah, I would say that, listen, all politicians are motivated by that cause that is their cause, right? Or motivated by the cause that a lobbyist approached them about and they pretend to care about or whatever. But I do think some of those elder statesmen, Jim Clyburn, to your point, things like that, I don't think they didn't benefit. I don't think they haven't made money. I mean, you do make money being a known figure in the CBC and all these other things. I'm never saying they don't have the right to make money, because politics is a business as well. It's a science and a business, right? But what I do think is that you can look at those individuals. They had clearly stated causes. John Lewis had a clearly stated cause. It was integration or bust. It was civil rights or bust. He rang that bell to the day he died. I look at Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, Great. You got a Brooklyn cadence. You got light blue eyes. Whatever it is you got that you think you're using. I need to hear more than rhymes and rhythm. I need to hear more than a Biggie cadence. I need you to be telling me what you're doing, not just for the constituency that you represent, but if you're going to be the future Speaker of the House. And Jeffries has not proven to me that he can do anything other than come up with a good zinger here and there. I need to see more.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because somebody in his team, I don't think he got nobody on his team to tell him that, because I think Pelosi was the one who got him ready for this job, or potentially for the job. So that means he just plugged in. There's no shade or nothing against him, but dude, you already plugged in. So you definitely, he probably, look, they should all politicians that are not speaking to, you just make, and thank you so much for making this point, that it's not speaking to what the issues are for the people. The people are gonna come around when your eggs are certain, when your prices are just, you're gonna lose your racism after a while. When
I'll take
you
my
can't
eggs with a side of Negro, please.
You don't
care. You don't care.
You don't care. And I used to, we say this when the family comes around. We just celebrated Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good one. But
yes, I did. Thank you.
Like we used to hard times.
Absolutely.
Like we know what that thick ass welfare cheese is. Even if you cut the welfare, we know how to make
something out of nothing.
And I bet you 75 of that 80 million don't know how to do it, but they finna find out.
Oh, we'll find out. Healthcare premiums and all of those things are going to take effect, and we'll find out.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up, I just want you to wrap in a sweet bow, since you like your bows. Just in general, like, what do you think the next year is going to look like? Say next 9 months, 12 months, as from a Black Gen X perspective. What do you predict that these midterms are going to look like? Is all these Republicans resigning, and can we do something before we get to the midterms? Because if we get to the midterms, it's going to look like January 6th out there.
Well, here's the thing about the midterms. Voter apathy has to be something that the Democrats have to get past. If the Democrats get out, trot out Mikey Sherrill, trot out Spanberger, trot out all the stars in the party, right? And get out there and stick to the messaging of affordability. There is no way that we're going to be in a position of affordability better than we are right now if we keep going along the current trend. So they should just stay. Keep your boot on the neck. Run ads that show our president saying he's the king of affordability, and then run ads that back that up with people talking about not being able to afford their daily needs and things like that. If the Democrats cannot stay on message as it relates to the A word, affordability, they will be back in the same cycle, because the one thing you can count on is that the people who voted for Donald Trump are going to vote for the people he wants in this midterm. They're going to stay loyal. He hasn't lost a large part of his base. So stop trying to coerce them. Don't focus on
you're not going to win, though.
Right. Don't focus on conversations about Trump. Don't focus on his racism, his nepotism, his grifting. Let the pundits do that work. If you are an elected official, your work is only to be talking about what the people want to hear. And I don't care if you're in New York City. I don't care if you're in Red Florida. You need to be talking about what the people need to hear. You need to be knocking on doors. You need to be handing out pamphlets that demonstrate cost of living from 2 years ago to now, and then going projected into 2028. This is something that has to be a concerted effort. And most of all, and more importantly, they need to be speaking at a 5th grade level. Shoot it over the plate. Make it a home run. Don't try to throw a fastball. Shoot it over the plate. Let the individuals that are voting digest and dissect the information in a plain spoken way, and we go from there. And then I think we have good potential. As far as Republicans stepping down, for every MAGA person that steps down, there's 4 more waiting, and they're just as crazy, if not more. So I don't even care at this point. I got to focus on what we can get out of this, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I would hope, and I think it's a race tomorrow in a congressional district in Middle Tennessee. So I think the Nashville suburb or something. That it's like a plus 22 for that guy, and there's a Democrat that got a chance. So, I don't know, man.
He has a chance, but there is some messaging that needs to be done better there. They're sending AOC out, I guess tonight. AOC is doing a tele-rally for her. I think here's the other thing, and before we go, you do have people out there, unlike the Republicans, you really can't trot out a former Republican statesman. George W. Bush is not liked. Anybody really that was a Secretary of State, any of those people, Attorney General, they can't be brought out. We have Jay Johnson. We have Eric Holder. We have Obama. There are a lot of people that can come out in those areas that, there's significant amount of redistricting. Get out in those areas. They need to be talking to the people. You're going to have to tap into some of the celebrity, but we see from the Kamala race that that's not all. Speak straight to the people. You'll have a better opportunity.
Yeah. Well, great catching up, man, with you, Steph, in regards to this political climate from our perspective, Gen X's, Black Gen X's, you dig?
Exactly.
Let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on. I see underneath your thing, Hype Woman for the Happy. What is that called? Enunciation? What is that? Alliteration.
Happy hustler.
Yeah, say that 3 times. Let everybody know where they can get with you.
Well, I'd love for people to follow me on Instagram at The Can Do Coach. I am hyper focused right now on driving the next generation of young women, 18 to 35, to be more critically aware, to employ critical thinking, emotional intelligence, so that they make better decisions for their lives. Some of that includes education in the political space, but a lot of it is about, self-awareness, how they communicate. So we have built out the Vibe Collaborative. We are launching skills labs and workshops. Again, thank you. I like that. For young women. And, for the fathers and mothers out there who have that child and they can be somebody, or that they are motivated, but you have that moment where you're like, they hear somebody else better than me. I'm the person they hear better than they hear you. I might say some of the same things. I just know how to say it in a way that allows them to apply it. So that's the big thing.
Great communication skills you have. Way better than mine. Don't know where you got them from. That's for another conversation.
That's right.
You ain't going. Yeah. I'm sure that took some practice.
Talking about practice.
I can.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steph. I hope we could get together again.
I love the
real soon.
Where you're going, and you can call me anytime.
Well, you said something, so yeah, I'll save the last 5 minutes about what happened to you, Grizz? I thought you was a fucking asshole.
No, never.
I laugh at myself. Sometimes when I think back. Well, first of all, I had a lot of substances going on, back then. So I got clean. Then second, had a lot of self-awareness, and that goes a long way when you got a clear head and you see how you affected people around you when you were clear-headed as opposed to when you weren't. Somebody showed me, sometimes I go back and look at some of the edits and I'd be like, did I say that? And it was like, yeah, you did. I was like, why? Why did I say that? Because you're trying to be, you just an extra muff. You know what I mean? So I just got tired of doing that. And when you get tired, you do better. Not just sometimes. Yeah, some people, when you know better, you do better. But I got tired and I wanted to do better. So that's what it was.
I just heard a brother say that not too long ago. He said to me, Stephanie, women don't change men. Men get sick of their own stuff and change. And
yes, I'm like, amen. Amen.
That was a perfect way to say it. And I let that brother say what he was saying and left it alone. But I love the growth. Look, you're glowing. Look at that.
I know you was laughing at him. I know. Because it takes an enlightened person to call out shit.
Well, I like being
and I laugh and love.
Appreciate you letting me see this growth. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome, Steph. I will definitely have you back. You were open. You didn't say if you book guests, and you know how booking guests can be. Sometimes, people are busy. People, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. We're in the holiday season. So you took some time out of your schedule to go ahead and do this. And for that, I say, arigato.
Arigato.
Arigato. Ladies and gentlemen, for my guest tonight for episode 119, Miss Steph Bee, I am your host, Jay Grizzy Green. And I will see you guys down the road. Peace.
We talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Now I gotta talk, we all gotta be quiet. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
And now your host, Taking No Shorts podcast, Jay Grizzy.